World War II had everything. Nazis, stormtroopers, this a-hole, people making out in public, kamikazes, Rosie the Rivet Lady. Sup, my name's Anthony Vincenzo, and I may not have a fancy schmancy degree or nothing, but I could drop some knowledge with the rest of them. So stick around if you want to get your learn on about WW2. Toby, we should do something cool here, like an opening montage with like graphics and explosions, and it could say like an idiot from Long Island drops some knowledge, and I could like fly in, we'll get like a green screen or something. Remind me, because I'm gonna forget. World War II. Now a lot of buttholes on the internet are gonna say, why is he talking about World War II, not talking about World War I? Well, it's not like a sequel. It's not like World War I was so good, they said, this was great, let's do it again. I'll bring a dessert item. So if I went back to explain World War I, I'd have to go back to the war before that, and the war before that, and the war before that, and pretty soon I gotta go back to the first caveman hit another caveman in the face with a stick, because people have been fighting since, we crawled out of the mud. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about World War I, because you need to know a little bit about World War I to understand World War II, but it's not as fun as, not that World War II is fun, wars are never fun, but like World War II's got, more stuff going on, and Nazis are fun to watch explode and stuff. So World War I starts with this guy, Franz Ferdinand, and they named the band after him, I don't know why. So he's the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, which sounds like it's two countries, but it's one country put together, and they're like what they call an empire, and they're like a big deal at the time. And this Franz Ferdinand guy, he's the heir apparent, which means someday he's gonna be king, but he's not yet. And he's driving into Sarajevo, he's got a convertible, and he's waving to people. And then these people decide to assassinate him. And this is like one of the funniest assassinations. It's not funny. Murder and death, it's all sad. But it's like, these guys are a bunch of bumbling idiots. This Franz Ferdinand guy is driving his car, and they think, hey, we'll throw a couple of bombs at him, blow him up. Idiots. So then the car drives by, they throw like a little hand grenade, but it takes too long to go off. The driver sees it, he speeds away, it blows up somebody else, and then they're gone. And then the other guy in the crowd, they got bombs too. Like, I didn't get a chance to throw my bomb. And one of the guys is Gavrilo Principe or something like that. He's sitting there in a cafe having a ham sandwich thinking about, man, I really stink at my job. I'm like the worst assassin ever. And he is, he's terrible. He's even worse than Zam Wessel, remember the Star Wars prequel? She's like, you think she's like a normal looking chick, and then you find out she's like a shape-shifting interstellar rhinoceros or something, I don't know. And then they tell her, go kill Natalie Portman. And instead of going to kill her, she sends like this robot that flies in and it drills a hole in the window and it sticks in a couple of worms. It's like, you're useless, Zam. So anyway, he's eating his sandwich, and then guess who drives by? It's freaking Franz Ferdinand. And this guy's like, whoa, this is like fate handed it to me on a silver platter. So he's got a gun now, and he goes out, he shoots Franz Ferdinand and his wife, and they're dead. And then Austria-Hungary's like, dude, you can't just go killing our guys, so we're gonna go to war with Serbia, because this guy was like Serbian or something. But then here's where things get really complicated. See, all these countries, they had deals, like I got your back, you got my back. If I go to war, you come on my side. This is like I remember back in the day when I used to go to bars, and me and my buddies would be like, hey, if anyone starts trouble, I got your back, you got my back. But then we had this little friend who would always be starting fights with big guys, and then I'm finding myself in a fight with much bigger guys, because I don't want to be fighting, I'm a lover, not a fighter. And that's what Germany was like. They're like, I got Austria's back, and they got sucked into this war. They probably didn't want to be in this war, but they told Austria, I got your back. Austria goes to war, and then everybody's fighting everybody, and it was just a big mess. So World War I was like, it was a boring war. They dig trenches, and they're sitting in the trenches, and then this one's attacking that one, and it's like, the line moves like 2 feet today, and then they take it back the next day. It was like it took forever to win anything, and it was like so boring. It's not like World War II, which has lots of cool stuff. I'm not that it's cool. I'm not saying it's cool, but it's like, what, blowing up Nazis is kind of fun to watch. So Germany's there, they're attacking the French people on this side, they're attacking the Ruskies over here, and it's like a big mess, and they end up losing. All right, but here's what you need to know. French people, they take them on a train, and they make them sign this piece of paper. This is called the Treaty of Versailles. And this thing says, the war was totally our fault. We're in the wrong here. And then the French and the British and everybody else, they take all the German stuff, they take some of their land, and take the good land, the land with like the iron ore and stuff, and they make them sign all these rules saying, all right, we're not allowed to have too many planes because we're jerks, and we're not allowed to have tanks, and our battleships, we can't have too many, and they gotta be kind of small. and we got to give you guys a ton of money to pay for all this. Now, losing a war is supposed to suck, but, they were really harsh on the Germans, and then they're trying to get their country back in shape, but they can't because they're giving all this money, and it's like, they punished them a lot, and it was like, I get that they were pissed off, because, remember a couple of years ago, people were complaining about inflation, because eggs cost a little more than they used to, or when your grandpa starts saying, in my day, we could buy a milkshake and a cheeseburger for a nickel, and they still got change. This wasn't like that. They had inflation where they had to take a wheelbarrow full of cash just to get a loaf of bread. And this wasn't even good bread. This is not like garlic bread or crazy bread or cheesy bread or anything. This is just like plain old bread that you would make a sandwich with, but they didn't have anything to make a sandwich with. So they're literally just having bread. It's like, hello, Wilhelm, welcome home. Here's a loaf of bread for dinner because we don't have any meat to put on it. It's like, this is terrible. And whenever things are terrible and people are broke and poor and desperate, that's when bad people come in and start taking advantage. Cut to Adolf Hitler. Now, a lot of people say Hitler failed out of art school and then he was butthurt for years and that's why he did. That's just stupid. All right, I know a chick from high school. She wanted to be an actress. She crapped out. She doesn't take over the world. She gets a realtor's license like a normal person. So yeah, it's got nothing to do with him failing out of art school there. But Hitler was a loser there for a while. And then he joins World War I as a soldier. And he likes it. He's like, this is his thing. He's like, I kind of like killing people. This is kind of fun. He's like, remember Matt Dillon in Platoon was like, I told the Padre I like it here. And he's like killing people and this is his thing. So Hitler was like, he was into this. And look at this picture of Hitler here. I mean, look at that mustache. It's like 23 skidoo, Adolf. You're the cat's pajamas. I mean, that's just a stupid look. You know what Toby, you know what that reminds me of? Remember that ice cream place? Remember, Farrell's, with the people had the mustache. It was like barbershop quartet, and then it's your birthday, and they come out there beating the drum, and like, hey, it's your birthday. Here's like enough ice cream to choke a cow. That place was the best. But anyway, my buddy Paulie tells me that the reason Hitler got his stupid mustache later was during World War I, they're throwing mustard gas at each other, so he had to wear a gas mask. So he trims just a little bit there, and he kept that little bit in the middle, which I gotta say, kind of a stupid look. I mean, I'm no fashion expert. I'm the kind of guy, I walk into the Gap, I point to the mannequin, I say, give me what he's got. So I'm no one to judge, but that's a stupid look. So anyway, Hitler's in World War I, he's injured, he's in the hospital, and he finds out that they signed this treaty on the train, and he's pissed off because he wanted to win the war. But they didn't have a shot of winning at this point. So what does Hitler do? Well, instead of saying, well, I guess we lost the war, he starts looking for what they call a scapegoat. This is when you got nothing else going on, you're like, I need any way out, I'll write a freaking goat out of town. What do you mean scapegoat? That doesn't make any sense, Toby. Toby's right, it's scapegoat. I thought it was in a scapegoat. Scapegoat, it's from the Bible, I guess. Toby, you did all right. So Hitler needs a scapegoat, and he starts blaming the Jews for doing this. They made the military surrender, and the Jews didn't do nothing. They had nothing to do with this. But he didn't want to admit that, our military lost, so he's blaming the media and all this stuff. It's anybody but the guys who did it, So Hitler's going off on these tirades. Oh, it's the Jews' fault. It's the liberal media. It's the elites. It's all this and all that. And people start listening because they want someone to blame too, because their lives at this point kind of suck. It's like they got no money for food. They got wheelbarrows full of cash just to get bread. Nothing's going right their way. So yeah, blaming somebody else for your problems is a pretty good way out. So Hitler and his team, they try to take over the government in a beer hall. It's called the beer hall. I don't know what they did in the beer hall, but they did something in a beer hall. They tried to take over. He gets arrested, but it was like not bad jail. It was like Goodfellas jail where they weren't really being bad to him because it was like he had a lot of friends and stuff. And then in there, he writes this book called Mein Kampf, which just makes him more popular. So little by little, he's getting more and more powerful. He ends up taking over. That's a whole other thing. But just, you get it. Hitler's in charge, and he's blaming everybody else. So Hitler's got some plans going on. He starts doing stuff in secret, like he's making a bunch of planes. It's called the Luftwaffe. That's like Air Force in German. Like, remember that song, 99 Sash Luftballons with the German lady? That's what that Luft means, Air Force. And Toby said, why don't you do a joke where you call it the Luftwaffe? And we could, no, that's a stupid joke, Toby, and you're an idiot. Meanwhile, over in Italy, or as my aunt calls it, Italy, you had this similar thing going on. You got this guy Mussolini, and he's like, you know what? Italy kind of sucks. He's like, yeah, we got pizza and pasta, but everybody there is broke too. This is the same situation going on in Germany. When you get people poor and desperate, they start listening to these guys Because he's like, oh, the economy sucks and I'm the only one who could fix it. And little by little, he's getting more power too. And then when he takes control, he forms this group, they're called fascists. And fascists, this is the worst, man. This is like when you get one guy as the boss and he's got a couple of friends and they just decide what goes, right? There's no like democracy or any of that. It's just like, we like it. If you don't like it, tough noogies. We're going to just kill you if you don't like it. So shut up. And Mussolini's like, you know what? We used to be the Roman Empire. We should do that again. I mean, not with the gladiators and the togas and all that stuff, but the taking over the world thing. So he thinks that's a good idea, and people are like, yeah, Mussolini, let's go do this. So Mussolini thinks, let's start taking over the world, but we'll start small. We'll start with like a, little practice country, like in a video game when you fight an easy battle to get some experience points. So he zips into Ethiopia with his tanks and his armies and stuff. In Ethiopia, they got like, sticks and rocks and bows and arrows. So he takes them over. And even then, he didn't do such a great job because he ain't that good. And then meanwhile, on the other side of the world, there's Japan. Now, Japan, for the longest time, they're an island and they're like, we just want to be alone. We got sushi and ramen, just leave us alone. We got everything we need right here. But the rest of the world was like, no, you can't just sit here and do nothing. We want to trade with you. Give us your silk and stuff. It started with the Portuguese. Like, you ever see Shogun, which is pretty good. They cut off a guy's head, they boil him alive. But that's how it started. The Portuguese were like, give us some of your stuff. We'll give you some of our stuff. But they didn't want to be doing too much with the world. And then America sent over this guy, Matthew Perry. And it's not the Matthew Perry from Friends, it's this guy. And you look at the sourpuss on that guy. He looks like he could really stink up a public restroom. But he goes into Japan, he's like, you're going to trade with us whether you like it or not, because, you got stuff we want, and we'll give you stuff, and we'll trade. And then so we open up Japan to the world, but then Japan started thinking, all these other countries, they're getting rich going to other countries. Why don't we start doing that? So after doing their own thing for like forever, Japan gets on this kick now. How about we start taking over other countries and taking all their stuff? So they started invading China in the 30s, which is like before World War II even started. So when does World War II start? That's a tough question because Japan and China were already doing stuff. So Japan goes into China. China's trying to fight them off. They blow up stuff. And if you really want to ruin your faith in mankind, Google the rape of Nanking. It's pretty bad. Don't do it if you're like eating something because it's pretty gross, but they did some nasty stuff. So at this point, China's freaking out a little bit. They're like, the Japanese people are burning down our cities and doing horrible things. We need some help. And at that point, they were friends with Germany. But Germany's got their hands filled with all the Hitler stuff. So they make a deal with Russia to help out. And think about that. If that didn't happen, who knows what would have happened with the war if Japan maybe never got together with Germany, and who knows? So Japan's doing nasty stuff to China. They're taking stuff from Korea. They're all over the place. And then they lay a beat down on the Soviets, which nobody saw that coming. This is like the '69 Mets. So yeah, all this was going on before all the Hitler stuff. So really, this is World War II before even World War II. Now, back to Hitler. So he's building up his army and stuff, and he's gotten powerful, and he's thinking, I kind of want to take over some more stuff. So he sees Austria, and in Austria, there's a lot of German-speaking people. Remember, they were friends in the last war? Well, after that last war, Austria-Hungary got broken up in little pieces. But there's a bunch of German people living in Austria. So he zips in there, and the Austrians are like, good, glad you're here, Hitler, because we want to be part of Germany anyway. And then he does the same thing in part of Czechoslovakia. This is called the Sudetenland. And they're also like, they're German people. And Hitler, at this point, he just wants to unite all the German-speaking people. And now the rest of the world's getting scared. It's like, they don't want to go through another freaking war. They just did this, and this was bad. So they do this thing called appeasement, which is a fancy pants way of saying doing absolutely nothing. This guy, Neville Chamberlain, he's the leader of England at the time. He comes over, he meets with Hitler, and Hitler signs a thing saying, okay, I won't attack any more of Czechoslovakia. And then Neville Chamberlain goes back and he's like, yay, I have a piece of paper. It says, peace in our time. Well, guess what? It wasn't peace in his time. Because the plane wasn't even cooled down yet, and then Hitler invades the rest of Czechoslovakia. And here's the thing. If Hitler had just taken the German parts of Czechoslovakia and Austria, everything would have calmed down and that would have been it. And now Hitler would be some guy from the 40s who made Germany a little bigger. He would be like a question on Jeopardy that nobody knows the answer to except them really smart guys. Instead, he decides he's going to start taking over even more stuff. So at this point, Hitler's got his eye on Poland. He wants to just take their stuff. He's doing this thing, he called it Lebensraum, which means living room. Not like your living room in your house, but like room to live, like, a big area. His whole thing was like, I want to have more food for my people, which sounds really nice, but here was his plan for doing it. He planned on taking all the land around him and giving food to his people, but not to the people he didn't like, the people who used to live there. Yeah, anyone he didn't like, he was just gonna work them to death, take all this stuff and not feed them. So that meant the Jews, the Slavs, the Poles, anybody gay, he didn't like them either. Anyone who just didn't fit his agenda there, he was just gonna take all this stuff, not feed them and let them die. And that's pretty terrible. I mean, I get you want a little more room. It's like, I'd like my own space, like a man cave, so I could host my poker game without my wife and kids getting all up in my business. But I'm not just gonna go knock on the neighbor's door and say, beat it, toots, this is my house now because I want more room. So Hitler decides he wants Poland, he wants to take all that land. But then on the other side of Poland, you got the Soviets there, and he doesn't want any trouble with them. So he calls up Joseph Stalin, he makes a deal with him. He's like, look, I'll take this half of Poland, you take that half of Poland, I want to attack you, you want to attack me. Sounds like a good deal, right? So Joseph Stalin, and by the way, Stalin means man of steel. He chose that name. It's like, I'm Superman, as before Superman, but he was like man of steel. He liked that. And then he's making that deal. He's taking the other half of Poland, and then they're splitting up. It's like, one time I lived in an apartment, I had a neighbor on one side who played his music too loud, and the other side he was always like cooking boiled cabbage or something disgusting. I thought I had the worst neighbors in the world. No, Poland, you got Nazis on one side, Soviets on the other. That really sucked. So Hitler zips into Poland, and he's thinking, Neville Chamberlain and the French, they're not gonna do nothing. Well, guess what? The French, the British, the Australians, the Canadians, the New Zealand, they all declared war on Germany, and then they did nothing. So this is what they call the phony war. It's the beginning of the war where they declared war on Germany, but they're not doing nothing about it. They just, look at us, we're calling war on you. And you get Germany, Italy, and Japan, they each want to take over the world, so they decide, hey, why don't we team up and take over the world together? But here's what's weird. The Germans think that they're the master race, that the blonde-haired, blue-eyed people are the best in the world. Mussolini thinks the Italians are the best race in the world because they used to be the Roman Empire. And then Japan thinks they're the best race, and they want to take over the world. So you do the math on this. How is this going to end well if they all think they're the superior race and they're teaming up with the other people who want their race? That's kind of stupid. So the Western Allies, they start this naval blockade where they don't let the German boats in and out, figuring, we'll starve them out like that. But Germany's got U-boats, which means underwater boats, a submarine. They're shooting torpedoes at them, they're sinking them, There's a lot going on there. Meanwhile, the Soviets and the Germans still have this I want to attack you, you want to attack me deal. So Joseph Stalin's taking advantage, and he goes to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They're called the Baltics. They're in the Baltic Sea area up there. And he's like, how about you let me put military bases in your countries there, and I won't attack you. And they were like, oh, we don't want to get a freaking war. So, okay, fine, you can build your bases here, but we don't like it. Then he goes to Finland. He goes, I want the same deal. I want to come into your country. And they're like, hey, how about you suck it, Stalin? And he was like, oh, okay. So he goes in, and this is called the Winter War. He invades Finland, and it's cold there, and they're all fighting each other. Imagine being Sweden right now. They'd be like, geez, look, we got the Ruskies over there in Finland. We got Nazis over there. I just want to be neutral. I don't want to get involved in any of this. And they're like, Switzerland's neutral. Maybe people will confuse us. You got Switzerland, Sweden, we got IKEA and meatballs. They got Cuckoo Clocks and chocolate. Maybe people just let us be. And Hitler's like, I don't care if you're neutral or you do the neutron dance. Just give me a freaking iron ore because I need it to build more tanks and stuff. But Hitler gets scared. He doesn't want, Britain going through Norway and getting Sweden's stuff. So here's what he does. He zips through Denmark, takes over the whole freaking country in 6 hours. 6 hours. That's not even the first 2 Godfather movies. And when I say the first 2 Godfather movies, I mean all the Godfather movies, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no third movie. And how does Hitler do this? He's doing this thing called the Blitzkrieg. That means lightning war. See, back in the last war, they would have to march all the soldiers, blah, 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 blah. It would take forever. Hitler gets them all on trucks, and he's got tanks, and he's got airplanes, and he's using trains. So it's like, before you know it, all of a sudden there's a freaking army at your doorstep that you didn't even know about. So imagine you're Babe Ruth, and it's 1933. This is going to seem like a tangent, but it's not. Take the little journey with me. So you're Babe Ruth, you're like the best player alive, and then you end up in a time machine. All of a sudden, it's the year 2000. You waddle up to the plate, you point your bat to the outfield, you're about to hit a home run. Randy Johnson's on the mound. He throws a 105-mile-an-hour fastball, just misses your nose by an inch. You're Babe Ruth. You're going to make a little Baby Ruth in your pants. Because that's not how he was used to playing. Like in his day, they weren't throwing it like that. And this is the same way. All the people who were used to World War I, Hitler's bringing World War II, and they weren't ready for it. Like when they're coming in, like, oh, should we build the trench and get our bayonets ready? It's like, what? That ain't no good no more. So Hitler blitzkriegs his way through Denmark, and then boom, 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 he's in Norway. Same thing. They're just not ready for this, and he takes over the whole freaking country. Yeah, so Hitler takes over Denmark and Norway, who were neutral countries. They wanted nothing to do with this. So are you listening, Belgium? And the Nazis, I gotta say one thing about them, they looked sharp. They had nice uniforms. I mean, they're jerks and stuff. My buddy Paulie tells me, yeah, you know why they look so good? Those outfits there, that's Hugo Boss. And I thought, well, Hitler's a real jerk, but that's kind of a baller move, buying your team designer clothes. And he says, no, I don't mean like they went out and bought like fancy clothes. I mean, Hugo Boss was the people who made the stuff. He was like nobody. He wasn't Hugo Boss yet. He was just some guy. It's like after the war, he becomes a big deal. And I'm thinking, all right, I get it, but I would certainly take that off the top line of my resume. I'm going to distance myself from all the Hitler stuff. In fact, I'd change my name. I'd be like, Hugo, screw yourself, Hitler. Toby, write that down. Well, you don't got to write that. It's on the video. Hugo, screw yourself, Hitler. All right, so this brings us to France. France is scared. They don't like the Germans and never have, and they had that whole World War I thing happen, and they're like expecting it again. So they do this thing, they build what's called the Maginot Line. They're up there by the border, they're waiting for the Germans to come in, but the Germans are like, well, we're not going to attack you where you want to be attacked. So they go through Belgium, which was a neutral country, and they don't care. They just zip right in, they blitzkrieg them, and then they're zipping down to France. And France is like, oh, I guess we should get our cavalry and start digging trenches. Oh, no, it don't work like that no more. You want to know the real kick in the nuts? Hitler got this idea from Napoleon, who's French. He did it the same way. I mean, it was a little different back then, but he had fast armies with cannons on wheels, and that was back in the day when people would line up in rows going, oh, it's my turn to get shot. And Napoleon's like, no, we're zipping in there with the old units, blow these guys up, then zip in there, blow these guys up. Hitler's doing the same thing, but now he's got trucks, he's got planes, he's got all the stuff, he's bombing overhead, and they can't keep up with them. So when the French realized that he was going through Belgium, they think, okay, we got some time to prepare for this before he gets to Paris. But guess what? Hitler's soldiers, they're all on meth, so they don't even sleep. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. They're all on meth. They're a bunch of tweakers. They're like, you know, Skinny Pete from remember Breaking Bad? Remember, it's the best show, Skinny Pete and Badger. I love those guys. But yeah, they're a bunch of freaking tweakers, and they're all zipping down there. Imagine you're some Frenchie there sitting in your cafe, eating your cafe au lait and your croissant. All of a sudden, a bunch of krauts are there waving their lugers around, going, knock tongue, baby. What are you going to do? Hit them with your baguette? It's over. You lost the war already. So, all right, they've taken over Paris now. And remember in the beginning I said the end of World War I? They made them sign that thing on the train where Germany had to say, we lost, it's all, the war's our fault, take all our stuff. Well, Hitler makes them sign something on the same train car. He says, where is that train car? They said, that train car's in a museum. He's like, how about you go get it? He makes them go get it and sign a thing on the train saying, Paris is yours now, we lost, we're a bunch of losers, take it. And then after that, he blows up the train car just so they can't do that same move on him. Kind of a prick move there. Toby, how long have I been talking? I'm getting tired. This is turning into MASH. Remember the show MASH? The show lasted like 11 years and the war lasted 2. It was crazy. I mean, I get it. You know, you got a hit show, you don't want to stop it, but, you know, it was getting a little ridiculous there. I'm not saying they should have made the war longer. They didn't know MASH was going to be a show. You don't extend the war, just, you know what I'm talking about. I gotta take a break. This is hard. I gotta be honest with you. I watch a lot of YouTube and I think if these idiots can make buckets of cash there just talking into their phone, I should do this. This is hard. You gotta think about what you're gonna say. You gotta say it. I bought a special little thing to hold my phone up there, and Toby's gonna edit it. I don't know what he's gotta do next. It's a lot of work there. So I'll do part 2 another time, and you know, Toby will figure out how to put the link up there. I don't know any of that stuff, but see you next time on Eat It From Long Island. Drop some knowledge. Hope you like this.